My girlfriend posted, "Know your worth, queens, don't settle for less," after rejecting my proposal. I liked it and commented, "Kings too." 6 months later, she saw my engagement announcement, and what she did next shocked everyone. Subscribe to the channel and like the video to see more stories like this. When I saw Jessica's Instagram post about knowing your worth just hours after she rejected my proposal, I thought my heart couldn't break anymore. Until I realized this was actually the moment my real life began. 3 years. That's how long Jessica and I had been together when I decided she was the one I wanted to spend my life with. We met in college during our senior year, and everything felt perfect from day one. She was studying marketing, I was finishing my engineering degree, and we had this beautiful vision of building a future together. Jessica was everything I thought I wanted in a partner. Ambitious, beautiful, confident, and she had this way of making me feel like I was the luckiest guy in the world. At least, that's what I believed for most of our relationship. She worked at a prestigious marketing firm downtown, always dressed impeccably, and had this social media presence that made our relationship look like something out of a fairy tale. I should have seen the signs earlier, but love makes you blind, doesn't it? The way she would sometimes check her phone constantly during our dates, or how she would get irritated when I suggested quiet nights in instead of going out to trendy restaurants. She always wanted to be seen, always needed to be at the center of attention, but I attributed it to her confident personality, something I actually admired about her. By our 3rd anniversary, I was absolutely certain she was the one. I had been saving money for months, working overtime at my engineering job, putting aside every extra dollar I could. I wanted to give her the perfect proposal, the kind she would post about and remember forever. I spent weeks researching rings, visiting different jewelers, asking her friends subtle questions about what she might like. The ring I finally chose was beautiful. A classic solitaire diamond, exactly 1.5 carats, set in white gold. It cost me 3 months' salary, but seeing her face when I proposed would be worth every penny, or so I thought. I planned the proposal for our favorite restaurant, the same Italian place where we had our first official date. I called ahead, arranged for a private corner table, even coordinated with the staff to bring out the ring with dessert. Everything was perfect, down to the smallest detail. That Friday night, Jessica looked absolutely stunning. She wore this black dress that hugged her curves perfectly. Her hair was styled in loose waves, and she had this glow about her that made my heart race. During dinner, she was chattier than usual, talking about work, her co-workers, some new project she was excited about. I was so nervous I could barely taste my food, but her excitement was infectious. When dessert arrived and I saw the ring box nestled next to her tiramisu, my hands started shaking. This was it, the moment I had been planning for months. "Jessica," I started, my voice trembling slightly, "these 3 years have been the best of my life." I watched her face as realization dawned. Her eyes widened when she saw the ring box, and for a split second, I thought I saw something flash across her face, but it wasn't the joy I expected. It looked almost like panic, but I was too far in to stop now. I got down on one knee right there in the restaurant, opened the box, and said the words I had practiced 100 times in the mirror. "Jessica Marie Rodriguez, will you marry me?" The silence that followed felt like an eternity. Other diners had started to notice. Some were even pulling out their phones to record what they thought would be a beautiful moment. The restaurant staff was watching from a respectful distance, smiling in anticipation. Jessica stared at the ring, then at me, then back at the ring. Her face went through a series of expressions I couldn't quite read. Surprise, confusion, and then something that looked like genuine distress. "Oh my God," she whispered, and for a moment I thought she was overwhelmed with happiness. Then she said the words that would haunt me for weeks. I can't. I'm sorry, but I can't do this." The restaurant seemed to go completely silent, or maybe that was just the sound of my world crashing down around me. I stayed on my knee for a few more seconds, the ring box still open, trying to process what had just happened. "What do you mean you can't?" I managed to ask, my voice barely audible. Jessica looked around at all the eyes on us, and I could see her starting to panic. "Can we please not do this here? Please, just, can we go somewhere private and talk about this?" I slowly stood up, closed the ring box, and somehow managed to pay the bill while Jessica gathered her purse. The walk to my car was the longest, most humiliating walk of my life. I could feel everyone's eyes on us, could imagine what they were thinking, what they might post on their own social media about the proposal that went wrong. But what happened next, when we got back to her apartment, was somehow even worse than the public rejection. Back at Jessica's apartment, I sat on her couch, the same couch where we had spent countless evenings watching Netflix, planning our future together, and waited for an explanation that would make sense of what had just happened. Jessica paced around her living room, still in that beautiful black dress, running her hands through her hair and destroying the perfect waves she had spent an hour creating earlier. She kept starting to speak, and then stopping, like she couldn't find the right words. "Look," she finally said, not making eye contact with me, "this isn't about you, okay? You're a great guy, Marcus. You really are." That phrase, "you're a great guy," hit me like a punch to the gut. It's what women say when they're about to break your heart and want to feel better about it. "Then what is this about?" I asked, still holding the ring box in my hands like some kind of pathetic security blanket. She stopped pacing and looked at me with what I can only describe as pity. I'm not ready for this level of commitment." commitment. I'm 25 years old, Marcus. I feel like I'm just starting to figure out who I am, what I want from life. Marriage feels so permanent. Permanent is kind of the point, Jess, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. That's what people who love each other do. They commit to building a life together. But that's just it, she said, and I could hear frustration creeping into her voice. I don't know if this is the life I want. I look at my friends who are still single, traveling the world, focusing on their careers, dating different people, and I wonder if I'm missing out on something. The words stung, but they also confused me. You've never mentioned feeling like you were missing out before. We've talked about marriage, about our future. You seemed excited about it. I was trying to be what you wanted me to be, she admitted, finally sitting down across from me. But lately, I've been thinking about what I actually want, not what I think I should want. I stared at her, trying to process this revelation. So our entire relationship has been you pretending? No, that's not what I'm saying. She was getting defensive now. I do care about you, Marcus. I love you. But love isn't always enough, is it? I mean, shouldn't I be absolutely certain before I say yes to spending the rest of my life with someone? The rational part of my brain knew she had a point. Marriage is a huge commitment, and if she wasn't ready, forcing it wouldn't help anyone. But the emotional part of me felt like I was being destroyed piece by piece. So what does this mean for us? I asked, though I was pretty sure I already knew the answer. Jessica was quiet for a long moment. Then she said the words I had been dreading. I think we need to take a break. I need some time to figure out what I really want. A break, I repeated flatly. Just some space to think. Maybe in a few months when I've had time to really consider everything. Jessica, let's be honest here. You're not asking for a break. You're breaking up with me. She started to protest, but I held up my hand. It's okay. I mean, it's not okay, but I understand. You don't want this. You don't want me, and pretending otherwise isn't going to help either of us. I stood up to leave, still clutching that damn ring box. Can I ask you one thing, though? She nodded. Is there someone else? The pause before she answered told me everything I needed to know. No, she said, but she couldn't look me in the eye when she said it. I didn't push. I was already broken enough for one night. I drove home in a daze, my mind replaying every moment of the evening, trying to figure out where I had gone wrong. The ring box sat on my passenger seat like evidence of my failure. When I got to my apartment, I did what any self-respecting man would do. I opened a beer, sat on my couch, and stared at the wall for about 2 hours. Then I opened another beer, and another. Somewhere around midnight, curiosity got the better of me, and I made the mistake of checking Instagram. Jessica had already posted. The post was a photo of herself from earlier that evening. She must have taken it before we left for dinner. She looked radiant, confident, absolutely gorgeous. The caption read, "Know your worth, queens. Don't settle for less than you deserve. Life is too short to compromise on your dreams. Self-love, know your worth. Living my best life." She had posted it 2 hours ago. 2 hours. It had been less than 3 hours since she rejected my proposal, and she was already posting inspirational quotes about knowing her worth and not settling. I stared at that post for a long time, reading through the comments from her friends. "Yes, queen. You're glowing. Living for this energy." Heart eye emojis everywhere. Not one of them knew that just hours earlier, she had broken the heart of the man who had spent 3 months' salary on a ring for her. That's when I did something that, looking back, was either the pettiest or the most liberating thing I had ever done. I liked the post. Then I left a comment. Kings too. It was simple, direct, and somehow felt like the exact right response. I wasn't going to argue with her or make a scene. I was going to agree with her completely. She deserved better than settling, and so did I. I turned off my phone and went to bed, not knowing that this simple 2-word comment would eventually lead to the most dramatic twist in this entire story. The next 3 days were a blur of work, takeout food, and trying to avoid anything that reminded me of Jessica. I had taken Monday off to recover from what I was calling the worst weekend of my life, but by Tuesday I was back at my engineering firm, throwing myself into projects and hoping work would distract me from the constant ache in my chest. My co-workers knew something was wrong. I'm usually the guy cracking jokes and organizing happy hours, but they were kind enough not to pry. Well, most of them were. "Dude, you look like hell," my friend and cubicle neighbor Jake said on Wednesday morning, sliding a coffee onto my desk. "What happened to that big proposal you were planning?" I had made the mistake of telling Jake about my plans the week before, when I was still stupidly optimistic about my future with Jessica. "It didn't go as planned," I said, not looking up from my computer screen. "Ah, man, I'm sorry. You want to talk about it?" "Not really." Jake nodded and went back to his desk, but I could feel him watching me throughout the morning. Around lunchtime, he came back over. "Look, I know you said you don't want to talk about it, but my girlfriend Sarah mentioned something yesterday that I think you should know." I finally looked up from my screen. "What kind of something?" Jake looked uncomfortable, like he was debating whether or not to tell me. "Sarah follows Jessica on Instagram, right? And she said Jessica was at Meridian Bar on Saturday night, like really late Saturday night." Meridian Bar was an upscale cocktail lounge downtown, the kind of place Jessica loved loved because it attracted young professionals and had good lighting for Instagram photos. It was also expensive as hell. So, I said, though something cold was starting to settle in my stomach. Sarah said she was with some guy, like, really with him. They were all over each other. The words hit me like a physical blow. Saturday night, the night after she rejected my proposal. Less than 24 hours after she told me she needed space to figure out what she wanted. Are you sure it was her? Jake pulled out his phone. Sarah took a picture. She wasn't trying to spy or anything. She was just surprised to see Jessica out with someone so soon after. Well, you know, he showed me the photo. It was taken from across the bar, a little blurry, but there was no mistaking Jessica. She was wearing a tight red dress I had never seen before, sitting very close to a guy in an expensive-looking suit. His hand was on her thigh, and she was leaning into him, laughing at something he had said. The guy looked older than me, maybe early 30s, with that polished look that screamed money. Even in the blurry photo, I could see he was wearing a watch that probably cost more than my car. Do you know who he is? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. Jake shook his head. Sarah didn't recognize him, but Marcus, the way they were acting, this wasn't a first date. I stared at the photo for a long time, trying to process what I was seeing. Jessica, less than 24 hours after telling me she wasn't ready for commitment, was out with another man. And from the body language in this picture, they were definitely more than friends. How long do you think? I started to ask, then stopped. I wasn't sure I was ready for that answer. I don't know, man, but Sarah said she's been posting differently lately, like different kinds of photos, going to different places, more expensive places. I thanked Jake and spent the rest of the day in a haze of anger, hurt, and something else I couldn't quite identify at first. It took me a while to realize what it was. Relief, because suddenly, Jessica's rejection made perfect sense. It wasn't about her not being ready for commitment or needing to find herself. It was about her already finding someone else, someone with more money, someone who could take her to places like Meridian Bar without having to save up for 3 months. That evening, I did something I probably shouldn't have done. I went full detective mode on social media. Jessica's Instagram posts from the past few weeks suddenly looked different when I viewed them with this new information. Photos at restaurants I couldn't afford, wearing dresses I'd never seen, tagged at locations across the city that she had never mentioned to me. And in some of the photos, if you looked carefully, you could see the edge of someone else in the frame. A masculine hand, part of a suit jacket, a shadow that clearly belonged to another person. The most damning evidence came from 2 weeks earlier. A photo of her at a charity gala I definitely couldn't have afforded to attend. She was wearing a stunning evening gown and diamonds that were definitely not costume jewelry. The caption read, "Feeling grateful for new opportunities and amazing experiences." New opportunities. I was pretty sure I knew what kind of opportunities she was talking about. But what really sealed it was when I looked up the charity gala. It was a 500 per plate fundraiser for children's literacy. The guest list, published in the local society pages, included Jessica Rodriguez and guest. She had brought this mystery man to a public event as her date, while we were still together, while I was saving every penny to buy her an engagement ring. The betrayal hit me like a wave. But so did something else. Clarity. For the first time since Friday night, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I opened Instagram and looked at her Know Your Worth Queens post again. My comment, Kings, too, had actually gotten quite a few likes, more than I expected. Some of Jessica's friends had even replied to my comment with laughing emojis, apparently thinking it was cute that I was being supportive of her empowerment message. If only they knew. But seeing those responses gave me an idea. A wonderfully petty, perfectly justified idea. I started my own Instagram post. It was a simple photo of the engagement ring, still in its box, sitting on my kitchen counter with natural lighting from the window. The ring looked absolutely stunning. Sparkly, elegant, expensive. My caption was short and sweet. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. That diamond deserves someone who actually wants forever. Back to the drawing board, but this time I'll know exactly what I'm looking for. Dodged a bullet. Know your worth. Next step. I tagged it with popular hashtags and posted it at exactly 8 p.m. on a Wednesday night, prime Instagram engagement time. Within an hour, it had more likes than any post I had ever made. By midnight, it had over 200 likes and dozens of comments from friends, co-workers, and even people I barely knew. Messages like, "You deserve better," "Her loss," "That ring is gorgeous," "She's crazy," and my personal favorite, "Save that ring for someone who deserves it." But the best part wasn't the support from strangers. The best part was knowing that Jessica would see it, and she would know that I knew. Jessica's reaction to my ring post was swift and exactly what I expected. My phone started buzzing at 11:47 p.m. with a series of increasingly frantic texts. "Marcus, what the hell is that post supposed to mean? Are you trying to embarrass me? Take it down, now. We agreed to keep this private. I'm calling you." I let it ring. Then I let it ring 4 more times. Each missed call felt like a small victory. Finally, I texted back, "Just following your advice about knowing my worth. Thanks for the inspiration." The response was immediate. "This is so immature. You're making me look bad." "I'm making you look bad? That's interesting." My phone rang again. This time I answered. "What do you want me to say, Marcus?" Jessica's voice was sharp. Angry. That I'm sorry? Fine. I'm sorry it didn't work out. But posting that ring like some kind of victim is pathetic. Pathetic, I repeated. That's a strong word coming from someone who was cheating on me. The silence on the other end told me everything I needed to know. I wasn't cheating, she finally said, but her voice had lost all its confidence. Saturday night. Meridian Bar. Red dress. Rich guy with the expensive watch. Should I go on? Another long pause. How did you? Does it matter? The point is, you were with him while we were still together. So all that stuff about needing space and not being ready for commitment? That was just coward talk, for I found someone with more money. It's not like that. Then what is it like, Jessica? Enlighten me. I could hear her breathing heavily on the other end. Look, yes, I met someone, but nothing happened between us until after Friday night. I swear. Right. You just happened to have a red dress I'd never seen, and diamonds I definitely didn't buy you ready to go for your first official date. Marcus, please, can we meet up and talk about this like adults? We did talk like adults. Friday night. Remember? You made your choice. I hung up and turned off my phone. The next morning, I woke up feeling lighter than I had in weeks. For the first time since the proposal disaster, I actually looked forward to starting the day. At work, my post had become the subject of considerable discussion. Apparently, several of my coworkers followed me on social media, and word had spread about my power move response to getting dumped. Dude, that post was legendary, Jake said when I got to my desk. Sarah showed it to all her friends. You've got like half the single women in this city wanting to date you now. I laughed, but I wasn't really thinking about dating. I was thinking about how good it felt to finally be honest about what had happened, to stop protecting Jessica's reputation at the expense of my own dignity. That afternoon changed everything. I was grabbing coffee at the little cafe across from our office building when I heard someone call my name. I turned around to see Emma Chen, a girl I had known in college but hadn't seen in probably 2 years. Emma had been in my advanced calculus class senior year. She was brilliant, like scary brilliant, but also funny and down to earth in a way that made even the most complex mathematical concepts seem approachable. We had been study partners for most of the semester, and I'd always thought she was amazing. But she had a boyfriend at the time, and then we graduated and went our separate ways. Marcus Rodriguez! Oh my god, I can't believe it's you! She looked incredible. Her long black hair was styled in a sleek bob now, and she was wearing a tailored blazer that suggested she was doing well for herself professionally. But what really struck me was her smile, genuine, warm, and completely without the calculated perfection that had characterized Jessica's every expression. Emma, what are you doing downtown? I work at Morrison & Associates now, she said, naming one of the most prestigious consulting firms in the city. Financial consulting. What about you? Structural engineering at Peterson Group, just across the street actually. We chatted for a few minutes about work, mutual friends from college, the usual catching up conversation. But there was something different about talking to Emma. She was genuinely interested in what I was saying, asked follow-up questions, remembered details about my engineering focus from college. This might be weird, she said as we were wrapping up the conversation. But I saw your Instagram post last night, the one with the ring. My stomach dropped. Oh, that. I just wanted to say, whoever turned down a proposal from you is insane. You were always one of the good ones, Marcus. The way she said it, sincere, without pity, just matter of fact, made something warm bloom in my chest. Thanks, Emma. That means a lot, especially coming from you. I mean it, and I know this might be terrible timing, but if you ever want to grab dinner and catch up properly, I'd love that. As friends, obviously. I know you're probably not in a place to think about dating right now. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw something I hadn't realized I had been missing with Jessica. Authenticity. Emma wasn't performing or trying to impress me. She was just being herself, and herself was pretty wonderful. Actually, I said, surprising myself, I think dinner sounds perfect. How about Friday night? Her face lit up. Really? That's great. I know this amazing little Thai place that just opened up in Midtown. Nothing fancy, but the food is incredible. Nothing fancy. After 3 years of Jessica's need for Instagram-worthy restaurants and $200 dinners, the idea of nothing fancy sounded like paradise. We exchanged numbers and made plans for Friday. As I walked back to my office, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Excitement about the future. That excitement lasted exactly until Thursday evening, when Jessica decided to escalate things. I was at home, actually looking forward to my date with Emma the next night, when my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I could see Jessica standing in the hallway, holding what looked like a bottle of wine. When I opened the door, she was wearing the blue sundress I had always said was my favorite on her. Her hair was down and wavy, her makeup was perfect, and she had that look in her eyes that used to make my knees weak. "Hi," she said softly. "I brought your favorite wine, the Pinot Noir from that vineyard we visited last summer. I thought maybe we could talk." For just a second, I felt a flicker of the old attraction. 3 years of history doesn't disappear overnight, and Jessica knew exactly how to present herself to maximum effect. But then I remembered the photo from Meridian Bar, the lies, the way she had made me feel like a fool for believing in our relationship. "There's nothing to talk about, Jessica. Please, Marcus, just 5 minutes. I know you're angry, but I think if you understood the whole situation." "I understand the situation situation perfectly. You were seeing someone else while planning to reject my proposal. You lied to me about needing space, and you only came here because you saw how well my post did on social media. Her carefully composed expression cracked slightly. That's not. It's more complicated than that. Is it? Because it seems pretty simple to me. You wanted to upgrade, you found your upgrade, and now you're worried that I'm not going to quietly disappear and let you rewrite history to make yourself look better. She tried a different approach, stepping closer to me. Marcus, what we had was real. It was beautiful. Maybe I made some mistakes. But doesn't 3 years count for something? It did count for something. It counted enough for me to buy you a ring and plan a future with you. But apparently it didn't count enough for you to be faithful. I was faithful. Nothing physical happened until after Friday night. Emotional cheating is still cheating, Jessica. And lying about it makes it worse. She was getting desperate now, and desperate Jessica was not pretty. So what? You're just going to throw away everything we built together? For what? Some post on Instagram? Some momentary satisfaction of making me look bad? I'm not throwing anything away. You already did that. I'm just refusing to pretend it didn't happen. That's when she played what she thought was her trump card. I know you have a date tomorrow night, she said, her voice turning cold. Emma Chen from Morrison & Associates. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? The fact that she had somehow discovered my plans with Emma and felt entitled to confront me about them told me everything I needed to know about who Jessica really was. How did you? I started to ask, then stopped. It didn't matter. You know what, Jessica? Yes, I have a date tomorrow night with someone who actually wants to be with me. Her mask finally slipped completely. She's not better than me, Marcus. She's just convenient. And when you realize that, don't come crawling back. Trust me, I said, starting to close the door. That's not going to be a problem. As I watched her walk away, I realized that this confrontation had been exactly what I needed, because seeing Jessica desperate and manipulative had finally killed any lingering feelings I might have had for her. And tomorrow night, I was going to have dinner with a woman who had looked me in the eye and called me one of the good ones, without expecting anything in return. Friday evening arrived, and for the first time in weeks, I was actually nervous in a good way. I found myself changing clothes 3 times, wanting to look nice, but not like I was trying too hard. Finally, I settled on dark jeans and a button-down shirt. Casual, but put together. The Thai restaurant Emma had suggested was called Golden Lotus, tucked away in a quiet corner of Midtown that I had never explored. It was small, maybe 15 tables, with warm lighting and the kind of authentic atmosphere that made you forget you were in the middle of a busy city. Emma was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table and reading something on her phone. She looked up when she saw me and smiled. Not the practiced, Instagram-ready smile I had gotten used to with Jessica, but something natural and genuinely happy. I hope you don't mind. I already ordered us some spring rolls to share, she said as I sat down. I got here a few minutes early and the smell was driving me crazy. Perfect. I'm starving, and I trust your judgment. That simple exchange set the tone for the entire evening. Easy, comfortable, natural. No pretense, no performance, just 2 people enjoying each other's company. We talked about everything. Work, college memories, our families, places we wanted to travel, books we were reading. Emma had just finished a biography about Marie Curie that had her rethinking her entire approach to work-life balance. I told her about the bridge design project I was working on, and instead of her eyes glazing over the way Jessica's always did when I talked about engineering, Emma asked thoughtful questions about load distribution and environmental impact. You know what I love about engineering? She said over her pad thai. It's honest. Either the math works or it doesn't. Either the bridge stands or it falls. There's no room for manipulation or deception. She paused, then looked a little embarrassed. Sorry, that probably sounded like I was taking a shot at your ex. I didn't mean. No, you're absolutely right, I said. And honestly, after the past few weeks, I'm craving that kind of honesty. As the evening progressed, I found myself comparing this date to the hundreds of dinners I had shared with Jessica. With Jessica, conversation was always a performance. She would tell stories designed to showcase her wit or her social connections, ask questions that were really setups for her to talk about herself, and constantly check her phone to see if her latest Instagram post was getting enough engagement. With Emma, conversation was actually conversation. She listened when I talked, responded thoughtfully, and shared stories that were funny or meaningful rather than designed to impress. When she laughed at something I said, it was because she actually thought it was funny, not because she was playing a role. Can I ask you something? Emma said as we were finishing dinner. And you don't have to answer if it's too personal. Go ahead. What happened with your relationship? I mean, obviously something went wrong, but you seem like such a good guy. I can't imagine why anyone would turn down a proposal from you. I gave her the abbreviated version, the proposal rejection, finding out about the other guy, realizing that Jessica had been living a double life. Emma listened without judgment, occasionally nodding or making sympathetic noises. That's awful, she said when I finished. Not just the cheating, but the lying about why she was rejecting you. At least if she had been honest, you could have had closure. Exactly. It's not even really about the rejection anymore. It's about the fact that she made me question everything about myself and our relationship when the real issue was that she was already with someone else. Well, for what it's worth, her loss is definitely going to be someone else's gain. The way she said it, with just enough implication temptation to be flirtatious, but not so much that it felt like pressure, made my heart skip a beat. After dinner, we walked around Midtown for almost an hour, just talking and enjoying the warm evening air. When we finally made it back to where we had parked, neither of us seemed ready for the evening to end. "This was really nice," Emma said, leaning against her car. "I'm so glad we ran into each other." "Me too. Can I take you out again next week?" Her smile was radiant. "I was hoping you'd ask." I drove home that night feeling like a completely different person than I had been a week ago. Emma was incredible, smart, funny, genuine, beautiful in a way that didn't require constant maintenance or validation. Being with her felt effortless in a way that made me realize how much work my relationship with Jessica had always been. Over the next month, Emma and I fell into an easy pattern. We had dinner twice a week, went to a farmer's market on Saturdays, spent Sunday afternoons walking through different neighborhoods in the city. She met some of my friends, I met some of hers. Everything felt natural and right in a way I had never experienced before. The contrast with Jessica became more obvious with each passing day. Emma never once asked me to take her somewhere expensive just so she could post about it. She was genuinely interested in my work and would remember details from conversations we'd had weeks earlier. She made me laugh without trying, and when she laughed at my jokes, I knew it was real. But apparently, Jessica was not handling my newfound happiness as well as I had hoped. It started with weird coincidences. Emma and I would be out at a restaurant, and Jessica would somehow show up at the same place. The first time, at a coffee shop near Emma's office, I thought it was just bad luck. The second time, at a bookstore where Emma and I were browsing, I started to get suspicious. The third time, at a Saturday farmer's market that was nowhere near Jessica's usual haunts. I knew it wasn't coincidental. "Is that your ex?" Emma asked quietly as Jessica appeared at a fruit stand about 20 feet away from us. "Yeah, and this is definitely not a coincidence." Emma looked at Jessica, then back at me. "She's really beautiful." "She is, and she knows it, and she's not used to being replaced." To Emma's credit, she didn't seem intimidated or jealous, just curious. "What do you think she wants?" "I think she wants to make sure you know that she could get me back if she wanted to." As if on cue, Jessica spotted us and started walking over. She was wearing a white sundress that showed off her tan and designer sunglasses that probably cost more than most people's rent. "Marcus, what a surprise," she said, her voice bright and fake cheerful. "And you must be Emma. I've heard so much about you." Emma extended her hand politely. "Nice to meet you, Jessica." "Oh, Marcus has told you about me. How sweet." Jessica's smile was razor sharp. "I hope he mentioned how close we still are. It's so nice when exes can maintain a friendship, don't you think?" I could see what she was doing, trying to plant seeds of doubt, make Emma think there were still feelings between us. "Actually," I said, putting my arm around Emma's waist, "I don't think I mentioned that at all, because we're not close. At all." Jessica's fake smile faltered for just a second. "Well, anyway, I just wanted to say hi. Emma, you should ask Marcus about his proposal story. It's really interesting." She walked away before either of us could respond, leaving behind an awkward silence and the faint scent of her expensive perfume. "I'm sorry about that," I said to Emma. "She's been doing this for weeks." Emma was quiet for a moment, then said, "She's trying to make me jealous." "Is it working?" Emma looked at me seriously. "Marcus, I've been on enough bad dates to recognize when a guy is still hung up on his ex. You're not. Whatever you two had, it's over, and you've moved on. Her showing up places and making veiled threats just makes her look desperate." That's when I knew I was falling in love with Emma Chen. Not because she was understanding about Jessica's behavior, but because she was confident enough in herself and in what we were building together that she didn't need to compete or feel threatened. That night, as I walked Emma to her car, she stopped and turned to face me. "Marcus, I need to tell you something." My heart stopped for a second. "What?" "I really like you. Like, really, really like you. And I know it's only been a month, and I know you're coming out of a long relationship, but I wanted you to know that this feels different to me. Special." I cupped her face in my hands and kissed her, right there on the sidewalk under a streetlight. It was the kind of kiss that makes you forget where you are, the kind that feels like a promise. "It feels special to me too," I said when we broke apart. "More than special." 2 weeks later, I knew I was ready to take the next step, not because I was trying to prove something to Jessica, or because I was rebounding from heartbreak, but because Emma had shown me what real love actually felt like. 6 months had passed since that disastrous proposal to Jessica, and my life had completely transformed. Emma and I had moved from dating to being inseparable. She had a key to my apartment, her books were mixed in with mine on the bookshelf, and her favorite coffee creamer had a permanent spot in my refrigerator. More importantly, being with Emma had shown me what I had been missing with Jessica. Real partnership, genuine laughter, conversations that lasted until 2 a.m., not because we were fighting, but because we were so engaged with each other that we forgot to look at the clock. Emma supported my work, remembered my friends' names, and never once made me feel like I wasn't good enough exactly as I was. When I got promoted to senior engineer at my firm, she was more excited than I was. When her consulting project got extended for another 6 months, I was her biggest cheerleader. This was what love was supposed to feel like. By month 5, I knew I wanted to marry her. Not because I was trying to prove anything or because I was following some timeline, but because I couldn't imagine my future without her in it. The ring, that beautiful 1 5-carat solitaire that Jessica had rejected, was still sitting in my dresser dresser drawer. For a while I had considered selling it and starting fresh, but Emma had actually convinced me not to. That ring was chosen with love, she had said when I mentioned thinking about getting rid of it. The fact that one person didn't appreciate it doesn't diminish its beauty or the intention behind it. If you ever propose again, the right person will see it for what it really is. She had no idea she was talking about herself. I planned the proposal for a quiet Saturday morning in November. Emma loved lazy weekend mornings. We would make pancakes together, read the newspaper, and just enjoy being in each other's company without any pressure or agenda. That morning, I made coffee while she was still in bed and brought her a cup with the ring box hidden under the tray. "What's this?" she asked, sitting up and noticing the small box as I set the tray on her nightstand. "Open it and find out." Her hands trembled slightly as she picked up the box. When she opened it and saw the ring, her eyes filled with tears. "Marcus," she whispered, "is this?" I got down on one knee right there beside the bed, still in my pajamas, with morning light streaming through the windows. "Emma Chen, you have made me happier than I ever thought possible. You've shown me what real love looks like, what real partnership feels like, and what it means to be with someone who loves me exactly as I am. Will you marry me?" She started crying before she could even answer, nodding through her tears. "Yes, yes, of course, yes." The ring fit perfectly, like it had been made for her finger. As I slipped it on, Emma looked at it with such joy and gratitude that I felt a little emotional myself. "It's the most beautiful ring I've ever seen," she said, holding her hand up to catch the light. "Marcus, are you sure? I know this must have cost." "You're worth every penny," I said, meaning it completely. We spent the rest of the morning in bed, making plans and calling our families. Emma's parents were thrilled. They had met me several times and had apparently been hoping this would happen. My parents, who had never been particularly fond of Jessica's materialistic tendencies, were over the moon about Emma. By evening, we were ready to make it social media official. Emma posted a photo of her hand wearing the ring, with a caption that made my heart melt. "When you know, you know. Can't wait to spend forever with this amazing man. We're engaged, on happily, ever after luckiest girl." I posted a photo of us together from that morning, both of us grinning like idiots. She said yes. "Emma Chen, you've made me the happiest man alive. Here's to our forever. You're engaged, my fiancé, your perfect morning." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Friends, family members, co-workers, even people I hadn't talked to in years were commenting and sharing congratulations. By the time we went to bed that night, both posts had hundreds of likes and dozens of comments from people who were genuinely excited for us. What we didn't expect was the phone call that came at 12:47 a.m. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, and I almost ignored it. But when I saw Jessica's name on the screen, curiosity got the better of me. "Hello?" I answered, trying not to wake Emma. "Marcus." Jessica's voice was slurred, like she had been drinking. "I saw your posts." "Jessica, it's almost 1 a.m. What do you want?" "I want to know why you never fought for me." I sat up in bed, carefully extracting myself from Emma's arms and moving to the living room so I wouldn't disturb her. "What are you talking about? When I said no to your proposal, when I said I wasn't ready, you just accepted it. You didn't fight for me. You didn't try to convince me. You just let me go." I could hear her crying now, and despite everything she had put me through, I felt a pang of sympathy. "Jessica, you told me you weren't ready for commitment. You told me you needed space. What was I supposed to do? Force you to marry me? You were supposed to fight for me," she said, her voice getting louder. "You were supposed to tell me that what we had was worth fighting for, that you weren't going to give up on us. But you had already given up on us. You were seeing someone else." There was a long pause, and then Jessica said something that changed everything. "Richard broke up with me 3 months ago." Richard. Finally, a name for the mysterious rich guy. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, though I wasn't really. "He said I was too needy, too demanding. Can you believe that? He said I was exhausting to be around." Despite myself, I almost laughed, because yes, I could absolutely believe that. "Jessica, why are you calling me? What do you want? I want to know if it's too late." Her voice was small now, vulnerable. "I want to know if there's any chance for us, because I realize now that I made a mistake. You were the good one. Marcus, you were the one who actually loved me, and I threw it away for someone who saw me as a trophy." For just a moment, I felt something that might have been satisfaction. This was what I had wanted to hear 6 months ago, that she realized what she had lost, that she regretted her choice. But looking around at the apartment I now shared with Emma, seeing her coffee cup on the counter, and her book on the coffee table, and her engagement ring sparkling on the nightstand where she had left it before bed, I realized that Jessica's regret meant absolutely nothing to me. "Jessica," I said gently, "it's too late. Not because I'm angry with you, or because I want to hurt you, but because I'm genuinely, completely happy with Emma. What we have is better than anything you and I ever had. But we had 3 years together. That has to count for something. It does count for something. It taught me what I didn't want in a relationship. It taught me the difference between love and performance, between partnership and possession. I can change," she said desperately. "I can be different. I can be like her. Jessica, I don't want you to be like Emma. I want Emma to be Emma, and I want you to find someone who wants you to be you, but that someone isn't me." She was crying harder now. "I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me. Maybe. But I didn't throw away anything. Because if you had said yes 6 months ago, I would never have found Emma. And Emma is my person, Jessica." Jessica. She's my forever. I hung up and turned off my phone. When I got back to bed, Emma was awake. Everything okay? She asked sleepily. Everything's perfect, I said, pulling her close to me. That was Jessica. She wanted me back. Emma was quiet for a moment. And I told her I was exactly where I wanted to be. Emma smiled and settled back into my arms. Good answer, fiancé. As I lay there holding the woman I was going to marry, I thought about how differently things had turned out from what I had planned a year ago. Jessica's rejection had felt like the end of the world at the time, but it had actually been the beginning of my real life. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing that could have happened. What started as the most humiliating night of my life turned into the greatest gift I could have received. Jessica's rejection didn't break me. It freed me to find someone who actually deserved the love I had to give. Emma and I got married 8 months later, and every day I'm grateful that Jessica said no, because her no led me to Emma's yes, and that made all the difference. What do you think of this story? Have you ever had a rejection that turned out to be a blessing in disguise? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. Thanks for listening to the end, and I'll see you in the next one.